Hey Erica, hi, I'm back.
Yes.
I
Hi.
just I started recording. Can you just test your audio real quick? Last time we had a freeze in the first part of your introduction piece.
Sure. Um, I and that's
Okay,
all. And I don't know what else I can do to test it. I just turned it off and on. Is that
just
okay?
I'm
Can you hear me?
talking. Yep, I can hear you good.
Okay, awesome. Okay.
Dr. Young, can you clean? Is that your lens? Can you just check the lens of your camera if it needs to be cleaned off?
Is that better?
Hey, Cheryl, can you see the chat?
No, that's better. I can't. Trying to log on to my computer. Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm trying to turn on the turn camera on button and it is not. Oh, okay, hold on, let's see. It will not let me turn my camera on.
Are you on the Wi-Fi where you are?
Yes. That is so strange. Okay. I'm sorry.
Okay.
This camera front. Okay. I'm sorry, let me exit and try to re-enter.
no problem.
Cheryl, do you know, is her name pronounced Kyra or Kyra?
It's Kira.
Kyra. Okay. And I see she signed as Bolden. Okay.
No, it still won't let me turn my camera on for some reason.
Is it through the app? You know, the Steams? Sometimes it requires downloading app.
Oh, I'm on the browser on my computer. I will try to maybe download the app. I've never had this issue before with Teams. Um,
Oh,
There you
excellent.
are.
oh, you can see me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good
Feels great to
deal.
be seen.
Well, hello.
Hi, hello. Sorry about that.
That is
Erica,
okay.
your camera's off.
Who, me?
Uh-huh.
No, I can see Erica.
You can see Erica? I cannot see Erica.
I can too.
Okay. I can't see you, Cheryl. I can never
Okay,
see
guess we can't see each other. That's okay because I am about to exit. So
you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Sharon.
So good morning to you or good afternoon, Representative Bolden. And do you prefer Harris Bolden or just Bolden?
Bolden is great.
Okay, and it's Kyra?
Kyra.
Kyra. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Kyra. Okay, so I'll get started kind of with a formal introduction and we'll just keep going from there. Did you have any questions before we got started?
No.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. And we are already recording. Welcome back to Break the Silence, Break the Behavior. I'm Erica Taylor, and this is a necessary panel discussion about the socioeconomic changes and effects of uterine fibroids, fibroid awareness, with prominent leaders such as today's guest, State Representative Kyra Harris Bolden. State Representative Bolden is serving her second term representing Michigan's 35th House District, which includes the communities of Southfield, Lathrop Village, Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and Franklin. Bolden also serves as assistant leader for the House Democrats, and she's a graduate of Southfield Public Schools. She received her bachelor's degree from Grand Valley State University, and then went on to attend the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law. After receiving her Juris Doctorate, Representative Bolden became a civil litigation attorney. She's also a very active member of her community, serving as a member of National Congress of Black Women, Oakland County, the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and as a commissioner of the Total Living Commission for the city of Southfield. She's a member of the Committee on Insurance, the Committee on Judiciary, and serves as the minority vice chair of the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules. Welcome, State Representative Bolden, to the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent, excellent. State Representative Bolden, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jan Katz-Nelson, who is an entrepreneur, and he's a very highly skilled cardiac surgeon and business owner. He's the founder of USA Clinics Groups, which includes the Fibroid Fighters Foundation and USA Fibroid Centers. Dr. Jan has established himself as a very strong advocate for accessibility, affordability, and compassion in the delivery of healthcare services. And he also has a center, I believe, in your district. So we're happy about that as well. So we have a presence right there where you are and where your people are. So, Representative, we're talking to you today because you are making monumental and historical strides in Michigan. So not only do we want to start off with a thank you for what you've done, but also to talk to you more about the path that led you to that. And so just to let our audience know that on October 6th, 2021, Representative Bolden introduced legislation to make October Uterine Fibroid Awareness Month in the state of Michigan. So in that legislation was also adopted that same day. So thank you so much for that, Representative Bolden. So I'd like to start off the conversation with talking about your why, because it's important that we know why these legislations are passed and why they're necessary. So let's talk about why you decided to make this a focal point for legislation.
Absolutely. So I made this a focal point for legislation, conversation, and actually appropriation as well for research because of my own personal experience. And so it was, I think it was maybe April of 2020. We were at the height of the pandemic, and I was not planning. So let me just preface this by saying I'm a very open person. And so
we have that in common.
And all of this I have shared on the Michigan House floor. So this is nothing to me. So I hope your audience, with this conversation appreciates me just being open. In April of 2020, so I had the pandemic. Very, very hard to get into your doctor, much less for an annual checkup. And being in my 30s, I didn't think anything of it, but I had not gone to get an annual pap smear the previous year because I had experienced a miscarriage. And so I had been to the doctor multiple times, and I just kind of skipped my pap smear in 2019. So in April of 2020, or maybe even a little bit before, I felt a protrusion in my abdomen. And it got so large that it, to me, felt almost like a softball, and I could see it when I was looking at myself in the mirror. And obviously that is something that is alarming, and I hoped it wasn't cancer. And so I did my own Google search and found out it was likely to be fibroids. And so I made an appointment with my OB, who was not readily available because it was during the pandemic. So I think I couldn't get an appointment for 3 months. And so in the meantime, I went to my local Planned Parenthood because obviously this is something that is very disturbing. And so I wanted to make sure that I got it checked out. So I went to Planned Parenthood, and they gave me my annual screening, and they said, there's definitely a protrusion here. We're going to send you to our to go get an ultrasound. And so at that point, again, this is around April 2020, they said you have 2 fibroids, and one is 4 centimeters and one is 3 centimeters. And I was thinking, great, because, in doing my online research, I found out that when they're smaller, you can have a less invasive surgery, a laparoscopic surgery. And so I kept my appointment with my OB, and they did a more invasive ultravaginal ultrasound. And we discovered that there were multiple fibroids. And at that time, the biggest one was actually 8 centimeters. And so that kind of shook me a little bit. And so one thing I learned from that was the importance of, 1, going to see your doctor, but 2, having multiple tests done, because had I just thought that they were very small, I probably wouldn't have went further with testing. I might have just thought, hey, it's fine. It's not going to hurt me. By the time I had my myomectomy in December of 2020, the largest one had grown to be 10 centimeters, and I had 7 fibroids removed when I had my myomectomy. And so this was very personal for me because they grew very quickly. They were growing at a rate that was, again, in July when I went to my OB, it was 8 centimeters around about. It's kind of hard for them to tell, but by the time it was removed, the biggest one was 10 centimeters. So you can kind of see how rapidly they were growing. And I just thought about how many women or people are going through this experience. I had to take off work for a myomectomy. It's like a C-section, so I had to take time off of work. And being an elected official, it's not hard to take off work. I definitely have more privilege than other people. But for me, I have to tell my constituents why I'm not representing them. I have 90,000 constituents that expect representation. And so I just thought about the millions of people that have this challenge, that have to take off work, that their fertility, reproductive system is affected either by having a surgery, by the fibroids themselves, by scar tissue. I mean, there are so many issues, and through my research, I found out it's the #1 cause of hysterectomy in women. And on top of that, it affects Black women more severely than other races. And so I'm learning all of this through my own experience. And then once I put my experience out there, basically on social media to let my constituents know why I wouldn't be at work, I started getting all these messages about people going through something similar, and people that had way more severe cases than I did. And I just felt the need to bring a voice to this very important issue because it affects so many people. People are suffering in silence because talking about your reproductive system to people and your potential fertility and things like that is not something that people want to talk about, honestly. And so when I gave my story on the House floor the first time, because I think that I've talked about my reproductive system more than anybody else on the House floor, at least since I've been serving. But, you know, you can hear audible uncomfortableness when I'm giving my speech. And, you know, again, this is something that people deal with, and this is something that many of my constituents deal with, and I just wanted to bring a voice to it. So ever since then, I've been trying to raise awareness for the people suffering in silence. The governor, Gretchen Whitmer, put $500,000 in her proposed budget in order to have research for fibroids per our office's request. And so we're hoping it makes it into the full budget, and we're actually looking to increase that amount as well. And then we've also developed prevention legislation as well. So thank you for letting me take a long time to share why this is incredibly, incredibly important to me, and why we need to raise this issue in Michigan, but nationally as well, because it affects millions of people.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got quite a bit to unpack here because you've not only told us your personal story, which thank you so much for sharing that. For a lot of women, that's something that doesn't come as easy as it does to, say, you and I, of opening up and talking about something intimate yet so impactful to your life. So I want to kind of go back to when you were diagnosed. You said you had the myomectomy in December of 2020. Were you given any other treatment option at that time?
So I was, and I want to commend my OBGYN, Dr. Lalanya Moore. We went through everything. She even worked with my schedule for my myomectomy so I could miss the least amount of work possible. And I know that sounds insane to some people, but I am a workaholic, and I represent 90,000 people, and it's important to me to be at work. And so she really worked with me to make sure that I missed the least amount of work possible. But when they did the intravaginal ultrasound and found out I had so many multiples, and again, the biggest one that they knew at that time was 8 centimeters, and they knew the rate of growth. She said, you know, we can treat the symptoms, we can treat the pain that you're experiencing, you know, it was mostly heavy bleeding and frequency in urination. Fortunately, I didn't have any other terrible symptoms. But again, what led me to go is I could actually see it protruding from my body. She recommended to me mainly because I was looking to have children in the next couple of years, that having children or getting pregnant with that many fibroids and with that size would be potentially dangerous because they tend to grow with pregnancy. And so it was recommended to me for that reason that I have a myomectomy, just to make sure that everything was good before trying to start to have children again. And that was the main reason. So I was given options, and I felt like that was the best option for me because of where I was in my reproductive journey.
Kyra,
I knew you were waiting to say.
Thank you very much for having me. And Kyra, because of people like you, I believe will move the mountains and help everyone. One uterus at a time. Okay, so Kyra, what options were you given? I understood that you had the different options, Monday versus Friday versus morning versus weekend. But what other except myomectomy options were you given?
No, that's a great question. And so it was mostly symptom managing. So I can't tell you what the
So either myomectomy or symptom management or conservative treatment. Were you ever given option of uterine fibroid embolization, UFE?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, you're a congresswoman. You're very famous and you're very public about this. And feel that I'm sorry in saying that you were not offered the best fertility friendly minimal invasive option. Let me tell you what's going on with fibroid thing, just to give you perspective of someone who is not personally suffering from this, but has a knowledge of magic, miracle that can change the world around of fibroids. You think you were just symptomatic, some pain and bleeding. You actually suffered miscarriage. Most probably this miscarriage, the fibroids kill the baby. Miscarriage was caused by fibroids because it's number one reason, fibroids number one reason of fibroids. So nothing benign and very kind. We should not be too kind to fibroids. Second thing, there was for 25 years or more, there was a FDA-approved treatment called uterine fibroid embolization. And it's a treatment went through the tiny needle hole, either here in the radial artery or wrist or groin. We insert 1 millimeter catheter that goes all the way in the artery towards the origin of the blood vessels that feed those fibroids. We clog them, fibroids die, get absorbed by the body. Whole procedure takes 20, 30, 40 minutes. Hour, 2 hours later, you can go home, you can be at work in 2-3 days. And as far as I understood, you were not given this option. Do you know why?
I do not. I do not purport to be a doctor. I have actually in my research, and you know, not to say it's extensive. Again, I have not gone to school for this. I am admittedly a lawyer and know nothing about the medical sciences. But I've actually never heard of that. So
wow,
yeah.
that's interesting. When next time you go and see your gynecologist, please ask her, doctor, why do you know about UFE? What was the reason you did not recommend? Because I know the reason. When you go to Walmart, nobody sends you to Target. So this procedure was around for a very, very long time. And I can tell you another thing. Fibroids don't make hysterectomies. Gynecologists do. Fibroids is a disease that has multiple treatment. Suffering is terrible. Suffering is terrible. Nobody should suffer, and it's because it causes a pain and bleeding and anemia and weakness and huge physical, mental, socioeconomic, and other things. And I'm sure Erica would like us to talk more about this because that's what we do. We have more than 100 locations, mostly in inner cities, like 36 locations in New York City alone, Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn. And so the point is, people suffer and for no particular reason, and they don't know about option that was available for 25 years. And I think the whole point of fighting fibroids is how to make sure that, I don't know, 50, 60 percentile of percentage of Black women and maybe 30, 40% of white women that actually unlikely to have this problem. Instead of surgeries, can have as early as possible this UFE procedure, like straighten the teeth, that will let them an ability to have absolutely best version of their life and have a health equity and not depend on the bad luck. So that's what we think, is possible. Would really, Kyra, would like you to, check online, fibroidfighters.org or usafibroidcenters.com, and just look more for UFE to start deeply understand that government can do better job protect the people, much better job. For example, UFE is covered by Medicare, by Medicaid, and all private insurances. it's it's very appropriate for the government, for state healthcare department. It just issued the guidelines. They said before doing castration, hysterectomy, right? Removing reproductive organ is equal castration. In a woman of reproductive age or any age, please consider other minimal invasive options. That doesn't work like this today. Today, gynecologists, because they basically surgeon for certain area of the body, like urologists are surgeons for other area of the body. They just do what they think, they do what they always done. They did surgeries. Now there are other specialties like interventional uh, radiologists. They don't do surgery. They do those minimal invasive procedures, and nobody knows about them because they don't have access to patients. Patients don't know about them. And I think if we'll be able to just bring awareness, like you, Kyra, just learned about this, if we'll, obviously after um, mini education and understanding what's going on, if we'll be able to bring this awareness to every woman, when they start suffering from fibroids, it's just, oh my God, it's not a big deal. It's 30, 40-minute procedure, hour procedure. I can be home in the office. I can be home hour, 2 hours later, go home, go to work in 2 days. Why would I suffer? Why would I risk my miscarriages? Why would I risk to be embarrassed to spotting blood? Or why would I be constipated from iron pills? Why would I do blood transfusion and get hepatitis risk? Why would 30% of women with fibroids don't have a sex life? Why would I limit myself and my partner? Why would I have a miscarriages? And why, God's sake, I would agree on any surgery, especially hysterectomy. Hysterectomy is called Mississippi appendectomy. And the meaning of this wording is double diminishing. Appendectomy is portion of the body that is needed. So when we remove it, not a big deal. And that means that doing hysterectomy is not big deal, although it's huge deal. And in Mississippi, I guess it's so common that everybody gets it. So, Kyra, I'm sorry, there was it's a lot of medical terms,
No,
but
no. And Dr.
I think you're in a position to, you're a megaphone and you're very open and comfortable talking about this. If not you, Kyra, who can make a difference?
Right. Dr. Yan, your screen has frozen. So we're hopefully it'll come back to us, but you are frozen for a second. We can hear you, but your screen is frozen.
Okay.
So I'll pose another question and we'll see if it comes back. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Is that better?
Not quite. You came back on, but you're frozen again. So we may try that again in just a second, hopefully. We can definitely hear you, but we can't see you for the moment. So,
Okay.
but we'll continue the conversation for now. So Representative Bolden, how does that make you feel, knowing, basically finding something out now that you didn't know before? And let me also just, empathize with you because I too had 2 myomectomies and did not know about UFE. So therein lies my reason for pushing this platform as well is helping to educate women about the possibilities. And thank you, Dr. Han, you are back with us. Thank you. So how do you feel after hearing what Dr. Yan has expressed?
If there are other treatments available that can be uplifted, that is wonderful because again, I know so many people suffering from this condition, and I think it's all about awareness and making sure that people know, because like I said, even through my Google search of with fibroids, I saw laparoscopic, I saw myomectomy, I saw these different treatments. So that's not a treatment that I had even seen through just an online forum. So I would love to know more information about it, and so other people can be aware that maybe this is something they should ask their doctors about going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned when you were talking about Gretchen Whitmer and the donation that she made toward the budget, You mentioned something about prevention legislation for the future and something that you all hope to bring forth. Can you give us a little more insight into what that looks like? And then also in relation to what Dr. Yan has introduced is making sure that that information is provided to people in the state, and then hopefully, we'll expand it out to a national level.
Yeah, so legislation that we've been working on is just making sure that people have access to ultrasounds in our communities. I think that's the first step, is knowing that you have fibroids and where they are and how they're affecting you. Because I think far too often we don't know that we have fibroids until they become a problem. At least that was the case for me. And so we're working on legislation to make sure that ultrasounds are included with your annual exams, and that there's information available from your doctors about all of your options for fibroids, as well as making sure that these less invasive procedures are available and covered through insurances. So that's kind of the legislation that we've been working on. I'm really focused on preventative care, or at least knowing where you are, because not every case is severe, and we know that. But again, by the time that people realize they have fibroids specifically, it's already a problem. One of the biggest problems, like the doctor indicated, is just education, because doctors will say, if you have an irregular or a heavy menstruation, that could be a symptom of fibroids. Well, one, does the average woman know their menstruation in comparison to another woman? No. So most of the time you don't know that you're heavy, and that's a symptom. And if you are heavy, a lot of times women are just told that, well, there are some things that you may have to do. You may have to use, change your tampon more frequently, or do some other things. I don't think it's readily connected to, you may have actually a condition that you may need to address. And so there is a lot of education that needs to be done amongst our community members, but I think amongst doctors as well, and just making sure that they have the tools available to educate their patients about, and having more robust conversations, particularly with women, about menstruation and any potential symptoms that they may have, any irregularities that they may be experiencing, because all that's not necessarily captured in an annual pap smear.
Absolutely. And as you talk about the type of legislation that you're discussing, and the future plans that you have, one of the things that Dr. Yan consistently speaks about is early education, and making sure that our young girls know what it looks like when something goes wrong versus, what things are supposed to look like. And as we all know, that we spend a lot of time educating on just the general health issues of, talking about STIs and talking about pregnancy too early and all those things. But we don't really talk about, what happens when your cycle is irregular, or if the pain is too great and what that looks like. So is early education something that you all plan on discussing in the future as well?
Yes, we hope so. We're trying to figure out what that component looks like. We're trying to work with doctors. Again, I am not a medical professional, and so I am a proponent of people in that space, know the most, but we have a broken system here. And so I've been working with the doctors in my area to see what works and what makes sense, from their medical perspective, and how we can codify that into legislation. It's not been an easy conversation, and I understand there is apprehension to having basically legal mandates regarding healthcare, but this is broken. And so,
Kyra, I'm
yeah.
your doctor. I'm licensed in Michigan, as many 20 plus states, and we have an office in Southfield, and we're adding interventional radiologist. And I think what is very interesting that, thank you, Erica, for a very specific question. The ultrasound, including ultrasounds in the annual exam, which translating to what I understand this, they never precluded, but because it's annual exam, it will be covered, no copays, no other thing. It will be easy access to ultrasound. I think it will be amazing because you were anxious for a few months to figure out what's wrong with me. Instead of people knowing, oh, I have a small fibroid. Does it give me troubles? Doesn't give me trouble. What are the troubles? Oh, bad menstrual period, losing a lot of blood, pain during intercourse, other things. Or when it starts, I will not be, women will think I will not be stressed because I know I have a fertility friendly minimal invasive procedure. By the way, it's very important to know that uterine fibroid embolization improves chances of pregnancies and delivery of normal babies because there's no more competition and it doesn't cut through the uterus. And we had, after first 5,000 UFEs that we've done in our locations, we have seen about 1% need for repeated procedure versus myomectomy. That will be a small quiz, Kyra. What do you think the risk of returning fibroids after myomectomy?
Well, I can tell you that it's very high because I have two currently that have started
But
to
did
grow
doctor
back.
tell you that it's about 50% after about 3 years?
I didn't know it was 50%, but that sounds about right.
But you say how terrible it is. And it's like farming. They grow, then I harvest a few times, then hysterectomy. You know what happens after hysterectomy? Everything falls down, and there's your gynecologist now, your good friends, that do suspension, bladder suspension, other suspension to make sure there's no leakage. So the system is broken, and definitely, I would like to know who are the doctors that participating in crafting this early education and approach. Are they just gynecologists or general practitioners? Who are the folks that helping you?
So we've talked to a lot of different organizations. So one of the organizations we've had to talk to are the insurance companies, right? And so that's a conversation. But then also the Gynecological Association, the Michigan State, I forget the actual organization's name, but Doctors Association as well. And there's been a few other associations for different physicians that we have consulted with regarding the language. So we crafted the language, we sent it out to them. We haven't introduced it yet because we believe in feedback and we know it's not going to go anywhere anyway if folks don't have buy-in, right? And again, I don't purport to be a medical professional, so I don't want to introduce things that don't make sense. But we've talked to at least 4 physician organizations as well as insurance companies.
So I would appreciate if you share with me, the language. Now,
Absolutely.
the uterine fibroid embolization is done by interventional radiology. This is a few societies, but major is Society of Interventional Radiology that were promoting this for more than 25 years and nobody listened. So I definitely think that needs to be introduced. Now, maybe I'm right or wrong. I don't know what was the conversation with the insurances, but let me give you a little color on what I think the insurance conversation can be very helpful. The cost of care, just care for women with fibroids, can be in $200,000-300,000 range. It's going to the doctor. It's taking the medications. It's sometimes getting addicted to medication. It's urgent care. It's MRIs, hospitalization. It's pain. It's infertility treatments and myomectomy, sometimes 2 or 3, sometimes with ICU stay, like we know some people here, and hysterectomy, and after that more surgeries. 9% of women after hysterectomy become drug addicts because of such severe pain after hysterectomy. So $200,000-300,000, maybe even more. Not counting writing off the best 20, 30 years of the life, not having babies that lost with miscarriages, and future generation not possible. I know some doctors have an average age of women for hysterectomy 27. 27 Medicaid data. I have access to Medicaid data. And so it's a like mass castration. And on another side, if you do, I don't know, $10,000 treatment that's interventional radiologists do for this UFE, suddenly you have 20 to 30 return on investment, ROI just for medical spend, not counting normal life. How do you count normal life? Pharmaceutical companies count $180,000 a year cost of normal life, quality normal life. That's how they price extraordinary costly medications. So it's unbelievable what can be done, but nobody knows. Because if you go to GYN to talk what's the best for fibroid, the GYN treat, you'll only get what's good for GYN.
Right.
It's like going to taxi drivers. I'm so sorry. People are people, and self-interest. And I don't know. I would rather be as open as I can to understand that we need to bring other point of view. Another point of view is interventional radiology and uterine fibroid embolization. Because when people come to us, for example, in USA Fibroid Centers, they get a call or can schedule online. They come within an hour, they get doctor's visit, transvaginal, transabdominal ultrasound, they get the diagnosis. In rare cases, we send for MRI if anything needed, and they schedule in 2-3 weeks, we schedule treatment, 30, 40-minute treatment, our home, and that's it. That simple. And can be 10, 11, 15, 20 women can be done in one location. That means we can just solve everyone's problem. And those interventional radiology, the amazing thing, I'll tell you more. It's not just women specific, men's too. I mean, prostatectomy or TURP, prostate treatment, they butcher it too. And they done all the time for men. And after that, men had impotence. You don't like talking about menstrual period. Trust me, men doesn't want to talk about impotence on retrograde ejaculation, that they cannot be fertile and other things. But interventional radiologists do prostate artery embolization to shrink prostate. Nobody knows about this. That's called progress. Mm-hmm. First, to change natural history of the disease, surgery was invented. Then minimal invasive surgery. But now many things can be done if we're not lucky enough with the pills, with a percutaneous, transcutaneous, catheter-based approach. And there's a sense of less relevance for all the regional specialties. Trust me, I'm a heart surgeon. I love doing heart surgery. But then cardiologists treat it more and more and more. And it's what we call it progress. And other specialties, I think, need to embrace and think, how can we help more women? How can we educate every woman? And gynecologists need to, I think, instead of counting myomectomy, hysterectomy, they need to think how many women we gave 20, 30 years of the best lives. And because they're so close to women and can watch and help them, I think that needs to be the pivot. Obviously, I'm not GYN, but I'll be as loud as I can. And myself, through Fibroid Fighters, through the amazing job we do. And Kyra, hopefully you'll be on our side, and we'll be happy to review this language and come. We'll be happy in Southfield, open the location that exactly does this, that we can help all the women, and would definitely like to celebrate this awareness in October in your district.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Yan. I'm sure that you've been a wealth of information for Representative Bolden today. And with that said, I like to think about this on a national level. We've had discussions regarding the Stephanie Tubbs Jones Uterine Fibroid Research and Education Act of 2021. And with you putting in this legislation in place in Michigan, do you see a way for you all to work cohesively together to push that national bill forward?
Oh, absolutely. The things that we are doing, we're definitely reaching out to national partners. We Can Wear White campaign has been heavily involved. We've had meetings with them, and we're just trying to make sure that the language makes sense for us, because we don't like to introduce things that go nowhere. And so we're just trying to make sure that it makes sense. But in the meantime, I think appropriations to research and into prevention and to education will be greatly helpful while we are crafting this legislation. And absolutely, once we get it in a good place, we'll share it nationally, and hopefully we can bring more awareness nationally for this issue.
Absolutely. Awareness and funding and research is what the wish list is, definitely. And just to ask you this, I'm not sure, I know it's the month of May and you've just declared October as Fibroid Awareness Month in Michigan, but can you give us a glimpse of what maybe your wish list looks like for October in Michigan for women who are suffering from fibroids or have just recently been diagnosed? What does it look like in Michigan?
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And we're trying to figure out in my office if we're going to introduce fibroids again or do a combination of, I also did a pregnancy loss awareness month. I think that was in 2020. And because the two are so interconnected, we're trying to figure out if it makes sense to do both or should we do them separately. But I think, for us, it's continuing to do programs like this and to just raise awareness of just fibroids, and that, when you have symptoms, this could be a condition that you may have. I think, again, that's the first step, because otherwise I would have never known unless I would have, it's quite possible that I could have seen the protrusion and just been like, oh, this is strange, but it really wasn't for me affecting my life in such a way that I would have done anything differently strictly because of the symptoms. But what was going on internally, would have affected my ability to have a child. And so it's really important. So even if you're not experiencing, extreme symptoms, it's important that you know where you are in managing your fibroids.
Absolutely. And as you all continue your education planning throughout the year, I would really strongly encourage you to involve Dr. Yan in his research. It's something that should be more widely well known and is not as he stated. I have very personal experience with everything that you've discussed, and including intensive care unit from a myomectomy and rehospitalization from my second one. So having that information, I think, was really key and critical. So, I'm going to volunteer him for you to be an access for information on uterine fibroid embolization, because when women are diagnosed, first off, we don't know, once we get beyond the idea that we might have cancer and realize that these are non-cancerous tumors, then we're talking about the treatment options. And we're so open and vulnerable at that time of diagnosis. It's truly important that we know exactly what all of our options are. So, as a lot of, OBGYNs do not actively offer UFE because it is a practice from an interventional radiologist, excuse me, then it's something that we need to make women aware of themselves, the patients themselves aware that this option is available. So I definitely encourage, you and your staff to look into that possibility. So I want to, basically close this out and, thank both of you all for this conversation. And then just my last point on this is the importance of this information being in the community. Dr. Yan's locations are in the community. As he mentioned early on in the conversation, he's in the Bronx, he's, Brooklyn, so Dr. Yan, how important is it that your centers are located where the patients are, where the women are who are suffering the most and have accessibility?
That's incredibly important. Listen, we're here to make a difference. And knowing that Black women suffer more than whites, by far, in the prevalence of the disease, in the early start, in the heaviness of the symptoms, more than twice and a half the risk of complications, and the lack of awareness. I think that's what we need to do. We need to make it easy. Listen, if in 21st century, we have, phones, we like easy, we like possible. Life are complicated. We need to make it very easy for people. That means it needs to be effective. It must work. So uterine fibroid embolization works. 99% we don't need repeated procedure. And we have the largest worldwide experience in our USA fibroid centers. It needs to be covered by insurance. It is covered by insurance. Now, it needs to be accessible. That means people need to walk in and get treatment. They should not wait for 3-6 months. We shouldn't say, oh, we do the best job, and I believe we do the best job, but we need to put this to work. So we work sometimes 7 days a week, extended hours, walk in and welcome. So we build not about us, we build around the patient. Like sometimes I ask everyone, please close your eyes and think, I'm the patient. I'm this woman. I'm this man. That's my situation. How would I like to be treated? What will help me with my other obligation towards work, family, and other things to make it possible? So I think that's the miracle of this, that minimal invasive treatments, and now I'm talking beyond just UFE and GYN and the fibroid situation. Minimal invasive treatment, that's the future of medicine. And I think our focus needs to be on cure, not care. And I want you kind of to think about, it's like we can care for disease for 20, 30 years, and it provide an enormous benefits for the hospitals, doctors, everybody else. Like, just really, that's what it is. The more we do, that's fee-for-service model. Instead of it, we can cure the disease very early, and beneficiary will be patient. And I want doctors to embrace this more, like us, embrace more. How do we take care, cure problems early? So people will not suffer, that money will not be wasted, that life will not be wasted. And I think just interesting thing, Kyra, about this ultrasound that you've done, your request. That was another thought in another state. If someone does ultrasound, how can we have access to this information? And every patient, I think it was Senator Gibson in Florida, has that information about every woman with fibroid in ultrasound can be tracked. So people will have a score, like a heart surgery. New York State was recording the mortality, and every surgeon had a public listing of what's the outcomes of his or her heart surgery. So Senator Gibson suggested, and that was passed, that every person, when they have information about fibroids, it's tracked. It's depository database in the system. Yeah, she said database, and they're building the database. That means it will be actionable. It will not be hidden. If someone does ultrasound and it just goes in silo of the EMR and this doctor, nobody knows. But if there's ultrasound with the recording, with the diagram, objective images, is someone in the database, we can score. Oh, we had the, wow, out of 90,000 patients, you have 15,000 fibroids and 10,000 had a hysterectomy and nobody had UFE, or out of 15,000, nobody had any treatment, patient was suffering, going to hospitalization. I think that will give an ocean of information that will be undeniable. Because right now, because ultrasound will objectivize the disease. And when you have ultrasound, obviously the symptoms and labs and anemia, everything will be recording. Absenteeism, marriage situation, fertility history. Then I think state of Michigan will have hopefully the biggest documentation of this disaster, right, pandemic in the whole world. And I would really like to help, if possible, Kyra, and volunteer and see how we can guide this effort. What you do is amazing. And, like they're saying, no good, like, let's not get the good disaster kind of to go without benefit. So whatever so you had your personal problem, but you turned this to enormous benefit for millions. And I just want to be by your side.
That's wonderful, Dr. Jan. Yes, and Representative Bolden, thank you for making our business everyone's business. It's very important. If you have any closing thoughts, Representative, please feel free to share them right now.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me a platform to share my story. I think it's an important one. And I do realize that many women have suffered way more than me. I think my case has been mild, but just to give a glimmer of hope, I am pregnant. I'm 6 months, and so
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And so it's been a journey, but just want to give folks out there a glimmer of hope, to just keep going, but really be adamant about your health and be an advocate for yourself, until we can put some things in place to be more helpful.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
so
much.
much. Thank
Oh,
you both for a very
finish on a
delightful.
high note. That's a
Absolutely.
glimpse of
Congratulations to
hope.
you.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you, ladies.
Yes. Thank you both. Please continue to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for joining us on Break the Silence, Break the Behavior. It's been a very riveting conversation and my honor. Thank you.
Thank you.